Hi, I'm Sandy with Lightning Tools, and I'm here again with Brett. How are you?
Yeah, doing well, Sandy. How's your International Women's Day going so far?
So far, so good. It's early yet, but
Fantastic.
I don't see any reason
Great.
why it won't continue.
Well, happy International Women's Day.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you. Yeah, we
fantastic.
don't really celebrate that here in the US. I don't know why, but
It is international. I mean,
yeah, technically, yes, that's true. Hmm.
there we go. So, yeah, we're going to be focused on DeliverPoint. So it's a new
Mhm.
month. We've got well, not a new product, an existing product, but with lots of enhancements made to it. And that's our
Mhm.
permissions reporting and permissions management tool for Microsoft SharePoint, although it also works with Microsoft Teams and can also be utilized against reporting within OneDrive as well. So you can also produce permission reports and manage some of the sharing links that you may have shared in your OneDrive account. Yeah, we've got a lot to talk about. It's almost impossible to squeeze a DeliverPoint demo into an hour
Right.
nowadays, but we're going to be focused here on just one piece of DeliverPoint, or one use case, I should say.
Mhm.
So, Sandy, do you want to say a little bit about that?
Sure. So all along, I mean, we've had DeliverPoint as a product for a long time, and all along the emphasis has been on allowing site owners to be able to view and manage permissions within their site. So everything is in context in SharePoint. You don't have a separate tool that you install on somebody's desktop or something like that. So what we've done recently to enhance DeliverPoint is allow you to see exactly what all sites you do have ownership over and which ones you can manage the permissions on. And that is all within the context of, wherever you're accessing DeliverPoint from.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really a critical point as well as to, why are we enabling site owners to be able to report and manage permissions.
Mm.
And if you think about how SharePoint is designed, it's exactly that. If you provision a SharePoint site, or if you create a folder in SharePoint, you're the owner of that object, and you have therefore responsibility as to who can see this.
Mhm, mhm,
Yeah, who has access to your site in terms of internal accounts, what groups are going to be permissioned on that content, and also what external guest accounts are you going to share content with as
mhm.
well is another key area. So that's not necessarily IT's responsibility.
Right.
That's your responsibility as the person who created that site. And that's why DeliverPoint works in that way, so that you have better control as to who's got permissions to your content,
Mhm,
and better reporting options as well.
mhm.
Um,
'Cause I was just going to say, because sometimes things get, even though you have the responsibility for that, sometimes things kind of get out of your control. If other people share the things that you
mhm.
own, which you can do in SharePoint, then and you may not know about it. So that's one of the big use cases we see with customers is they just want to see who actually has access to my content.
Yeah, absolutely. And who is that person? I think that's
Hmm.
clear to understand as well, because the person who is the site owner isn't necessarily IT.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
yeah, this is not this is alien to them. It's or could be alien to them. I don't want to give everybody the same same persona, but it could be alien to you when it comes down to managing security and permissions.
Hmm.
What does actually edit mean? What does contribute mean?
Hmm.
Yeah, it's challenging, and it's even more challenging when you can only report and manage permissions on one folder or one file at a time. So
Hmm.
when you've got that responsibility of effectively governing permissions inside a site that you own, that site could have hundreds or thousands of files and folders, and it is growing all the time. As you correctly said, people are sharing files and folders with guest accounts that is now beyond, not beyond your control, but it's maybe going unnoticed. You're not
Hmm.
knowing that
Right, right.
people are actually sharing that content, and therefore not knowing who has access to this content that you're responsible for.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that can be a huge challenge. Um, and nobody's really got that time, even IT, to go through and troll those permissions one folder or one file at a time, when there's hundreds or thousands or even tens of thousands of those, all residing within inside that one site, or subsites, and so on. So yeah, that's why as a site owner, we've enabled it so that you can bulk report across your site. You can manage sharing links across the entire site, and you can even get a permission summary to really determine what's going on inside this site, who's broken what permissions and where, and how many sharing links exist, what labels are being used for security and compliance, and who's got access to that content. It gives you all of that in a very useful report where you can dig deeper if you need to. So we'll take a look at that in a moment. I do just want to emphasize that this is not just a tool for site owners either. We're going to be doing some other videos that will focus on IT and how you can use DeliverPoint to centrally manage permissions inside your environment. But the focus today is on the permission management as a site owner within a site that you happen to own. So let's take a look, and I think it'd be good to just show a contrast here of what you might look at using SharePoint out of the box versus some of the reports that you get inside of DeliverPoint. So the way that you would access the site permissions report on the site is to click onto the cog icon inside of SharePoint, choose site permissions.
And this is the default. This is the SharePoint.
This is the default. Yeah, absolutely. So this is using SharePoint to look at the permissions, and you can see here it's not listing an awful lot. It doesn't look like there's much going on. We can see that the everyone group is in here with read permissions, and the way it's getting that is because it's nested inside the visitors group. We have a sales group which is nested inside of site members, and that determines the permissions, which is edit. And then we've also got Lightning Tools sales members, which is a Microsoft 365 group, which it does enumerate the members, although you get like an avatar, so you have to kind of dig a bit deeper to see who those members are and so on. And then we've also got the full control group or site owner group at the top, which is again using a nested group with those members in there as well. So you have to do a bit of an imagination to determine who's got the permissions, and you can't see who's inside that Active Directory security group. So there's a challenge there. At that point, the site owner is immediately having to assume that the AD groups are being managed effectively. They don't know.
And that's usually done by IT, probably.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And you can go deeper. You can click onto the advanced permission settings still using SharePoint. This is actually opening up a few other things that we didn't see just now. That is, there's some direct permissions that are going on. So people have actually been given a direct permission, bypassing the SharePoint groups, bypassing the Microsoft 365 groups or AD groups, and been given permissions that way. So that could happen.
If you didn't know to click on that advanced thing, though, you wouldn't see that.
That would have gone unnoticed, exactly. And that's only reporting on the site. It's not reporting on everything inside the site, the lists, the libraries, the folders, the files, and so on. So that's just giving you an idea of what you have out of the box. And if we just have a look at how DeliverPoint will help you inside that site, let's just wait for this page to render properly. There we go. And you'll notice in the top right-hand corner, if I have full control to the site, I will see this icon appearing in the top right. And the very top option is full-blown DeliverPoint. We go in here, we can see lots of different reports, ability to schedule reports, and different actions that you can perform and so on. And again, because the people that are managing permissions inside a site are not necessarily technical, you don't really need to go in here if you don't know what you're doing. You can just simply click down here to discover permissions. It's 2 clicks away. We run the discover permissions and we see a list of everybody that is permissioned inside this site. And we've got that list by name. So again, maybe IT is not interested in seeing all the names. IT is interested in seeing groups and so on. But from somebody that is a business user that's managing this, they want to see the team members that they work with and make sure that they're the people that are showing up inside this permission report. So we see those names. You can switch it to be by groups if you want to. So if that's easier for you, and then you can drill into each of these different groups to see who the members are of those. But the default is to show you all the users. You can then see the permissions assigned to each user, and then how those permissions were assigned as well, which is over on the far right.
Just by the way, I can't tell you the number of times that I've been in an onboarding call with a customer and they run this for the first time and they see some users and they go, wait, what? That person?
Yep. Yep. It happens to me every time as well, I think. So yeah, that's very true. But yeah, just to explain some of this as well, you'll notice there's 4 pages of people that are permissioned. So we're just still on page 1. Page 1, we can see a number of users with read permissions. And if we go and have a look at, well, how do these people get read permissions? I can see it's through the everyone group. Now, at that point, it's like, okay, well, yeah, I can understand why the everyone group has read. I don't necessarily need to see that in the report now that I know that that's the case. So what I could do is filter out the everyone group in here, and that allows me to see all the other permissions that I might be more concerned about. So we can see now this has been brought down to 2 pages, so it's more manageable, and we can see that we've got people like demo user 4 in here, and you can see the full path to those permissions. Now I can bet you that you would have had no idea the demo user 4 was permissioned at all inside of this. Because they were inside the sales Active Directory security group, which can't be enumerated. So what you didn't know was there's actually a nested group inside the Active Directory level, which demo user 4 is a member of. So even if we knew the people that were inside the sales group, we still wouldn't have known that demo user 4 was going to be permissioned on this site. And here they are. So yeah, that's something that is easily resolved. And you'll also see that some other users have the same permissions, but they've been granted it in different ways. So they may be members of other AD groups, or members of the Microsoft 365 groups, or SharePoint groups, and so on. So yeah, that's one report that we have, which is the Discover Permissions. Now you can pick and choose what you want to run that report on. You can run it at the list level or the library level. You can run it against one or more folders and files and so on as well. But each time I'm selecting certain things that I want to include in my report. So at the top here, I could discover the permissions at the library level. If we close that, we could discover the permissions on several folders at the same time. So in here is again the discover permissions, and this time it includes all of those folders and shows me who's got permissions to them. And one thing you may pick up on in here is the difference in the transparency of the folder name. So sometimes it's sort of set to 100%, in full color. Sometimes it's dimmed or translucent. Can't say that word. Yeah, if it's dimmed, then that folder inherits permissions. If it's in full color, it has unique permissions. So we can actually see where we can change things as well from here. So if you do spot that, hang on a second, what's demo user 10 doing in here with the design permissions directly as well, I could go through and select that row, and then we can come down here to the permissions management and delete those permissions. So just running that will go through and remove the permissions on that one particular folder that we selected. You may also see something like this, where demo user 7 has multiple permissions. Not sure what's going on there, because that's just unnecessary and messy. So what we can do is, again, come down here to the account management. We could revoke permissions, because we don't necessarily need them to have every single permission that there is. Maybe, yeah, we just leave them with one of these permissions. So we can pick and choose what we want to remove, what we want to retain, and so on. And when we run that, that will be the case. So we can tidy up the permissions from within inside the permission report, which is really useful.
Yep.
Now, leading on to sharing links, that's the other challenge, because anybody that has edit permissions can share things. So they can share files and folders, maybe with people internally or externally. Now, there is sort of site-wide controls over that, so you can determine whether you want to be able to share things inside the site or not. But if you do, then it's people with edit permissions that could do the sharing, and then you could easily lose control over that.
Yep.
And it's a useful feature to be able to share things. So, so I'm not saying don't do it, but being able to find what's been shared, that again is something you could do at the library level or on multiple files and folders. So maybe if there's just something critical in here, we could go through and say, I just want to make sure out of these 2 folders, that there is no sharing links, and I can see that there is one. We can see who shared it when they shared it, and it's shared with anyone. So that's now a concern. So what we could do is go through and select that and maybe remove the sharing link, or we could change the expiration, or better still, we can start a chat with that person and say, just wanted to make sure that you're sharing this with anybody, right? So it could be an educational piece as well. So we can report on certain things, but if we just jump straight up to the site, you'll notice that we can just pull up the sharing links report at the site level, and that has brought back everything that's been shared somewhere within inside this site. There's a list, and there's also folders and items. And again, we can see who shared them, when they shared them, the permission, the type of link, and we can also see who has permissions as well via that link, which can also be changed and removed and so on as well. So yeah, that's the sharing links. Another useful one, Sandy, do you use this much, the permission summary?
Yeah, I do sometimes if it's not too big of a site, but yeah, to see, well, as you say, a summary. Yeah, if you want to click that and just see what kinds of things you get to see. It's kind of a high level view then of the permissions and usage on the site, which is really helpful to have. And I don't think there's anything comparable, even remotely comparable in SharePoint out of the box.
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll notice before you run this report that there's several options as to what you want to see. What is useful is to see some of the summary items, which you're going to see anyway, but we can also show things like sensitivity labels and things like that as well, which I do like to see. So we'll just generate this, and yeah, that's gone through the entire site. Now, when I mentioned this high level information, you can see that at the very top here. So we can determine from that there's 5 lists inside the site with unique permissions. There's also 13 items with unique permissions, and there's 8 sharing links. So by
I really like that drill down that you can do. Yeah,
it's great, and it opens up as a new tab, so you can then go through and see what those unique objects are, and from here you can actually compare them as well. So the site is always at the very top, and then I might decide, well, I'm a bit concerned with why commission sheets might have unique permissions. Maybe there's other things in here as well that I want to check on, things like sales strategy. So if I choose those 3, one of the reports that we can do is a compare permissions, which actually shows us what the differences are against those 3 objects. So we can see the commission sheets and the sales strategy and how that differs from the site. And yeah, that gives you the background maybe as to why they have unique permissions. So if you ever need to re-inherit, you can do that from in here as well. We can break or re-inherit the permissions on those. So again,
super
allowing
useful.
you to stay on, it's allowing you to stay on top of those permissions and make sure that you're not breaking permission inheritance unnecessarily and so on. Then we also have the sharing links, which we can open up from there. That takes us into the same report that you just saw, but focusing in on those 8 items there. And then if we scroll down, I can also see that there's 7 items here that are marked as confidential. So if we click onto that one, we get the site permissions, which we can collapse, and then we just get everything that's marked as confidential inside this site. And yeah, we can check who has access to that content.
Perfect.
So yeah, really key. So that's some of the reports that you've got. Now there is this new option. Sandy, do you want to explain what's going on here with this schedule?
Sure. So we've had scheduled reporting in DeliverPoint for a while now, but we've added it to this page extension menu so that you can see it requires a bit of extra setup by your IT, but if it has been set up, then you'll be able to actually click on the schedules. Otherwise, you'll see it grayed out. But what that lets you do is run, maybe some of those might be larger reports, and it lets you run those in the background rather than sitting there in your browser waiting for them to complete. And then DeliverPoint can also notify you when that report is finished running, so that you can then open it up in your browser. That's also a new feature, rather than having it be an Excel spreadsheet. But that lets you run, as you see, these 4 different reports as scheduled reports, which you can also, you can just run them now in the background, or you can set them to recur. So maybe you need the same report every quarter for your compliances or things like that. So you can do that with the scheduled reporting.
Yeah, fantastic. And just to point out that you may not know how long one of these real-time reports that
Right.
we've seen are going to take, because even though you're reporting within a site, that site could contain hundreds of thousands of documents maybe, or even have some very large AD groups in here that need enumerating and so on. So yeah, if you try to run one of those and it starts to take longer than 30 seconds, it will give you the option of turning it into a scheduled report as well. So yeah, you're not having to sit there and wait unnecessarily. But yeah, if we go down, that is new. Absolutely. So if we come down here to the schedule option, and we could say schedule a Discover Permissions report. In here we can pre-filter it with what permissions we want to see. It doesn't just have to be the permission level. If we want to focus on guest accounts, disabled users, external users, whatever, we can filter on that information as well. Or we could just look at people of a certain permission level. So I could say I'm really interested in people that have edit permissions within the site. So I could schedule that to run, say, monthly. It could run on a certain day within that month, and I can schedule it for a specific user. So if we put a user in here, they'll get notified if they check this box to come in and open their report, and yeah, they can then just every month check that the permissions are as they should be. And you'll notice that there's other options in there as well that we can include or exclude, such as, do we just want to focus on things with unique permissions, or do we also want to look at permissions regardless as to whether files and folders are inheriting,
Which
and
could
so
end
on.
up being an enormous report.
Yeah, correct. Absolutely. So yeah, once we're done, we just hit schedule. So you can see how that's been scheduled now. When it's done, we'll get that notification. And if we just jump into the main DeliverPoint page, and we'll go into the scheduled reports, this is where they'll all be. And what we can do is go through and select the ones that we want to access, and we can open them up. And we can still filter, sort them. We can change the permissions from there, and so on, which is really, really handy. So in here, you'll notice there's a report across multiple site collections. And if I click onto that, you can see how many site collections are included. There's a lot. But we're not having to wait for that to generate, because it's already been generated for me. So all I have to do is click onto the view to open it. And now I can see people that are permissioned. We can again make the changes to that.
I see there are 200 pages of that.
Yeah, absolutely. With I don't know how many per page, but yeah, we can transfer permissions, copy permissions. We can take a snapshot of permissions, and we can sort and filter. So really
Nice.
powerful feature.
Yep. Great.
Excellent. So that's all from the perspective of a site owner. It will allow you to have confidence that people have the right permissions to the content that you're managing. And of course, when things need to be done on a larger scale, that's where IT can still use DeliverPoint to report and manage maybe across different sites and site collections in the tenant and so on. But we'll get into that next week. I think today we can leave it as the site owner overview.
Sounds good. Great. Thanks very much for all of that. And yeah, hopefully everybody finds that useful. And you can download a free trial of DeliverPoint if you want to try it out in your own tenant and see how your permissions stack up.
Sounds great. Or even book a demo.
Yes,
so if you want to do it in a bit more depth, feel free to do that. But
yep, great.
Sandy, thank you very much. It's been great chatting to you again.
Yep,
and
same.
see you next time.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.